It's time now for the political analysis of Fromm and Fuller. Al Fromm, former political advisor to President Bill Clinton, and Craig Fuller, former political advisor to both President Ronald Reagan and George H.W. Good morning, all. You know, Al, I'd like to start with you and to talk about this unique strategy that Governor Ron DeSantis is using, which I would probably call the campaign against wokeness. He certainly had been doing this before his landslide victory in November when he took on Disney. And now he is trying to cancel advanced placement class focused on African-American history. Independent of your personal views, it seems like this is working. He's doing it all the time.
I don't think it's working. I think if it's working, it's illusory. Look, why is he doing these things? Because he wants to, quote, own the libs, whatever that means. I don't want to even own the libs. And because he thinks it's his best route, the best route for him to the White House is to act like Donald Trump without being Donald Trump. I've said all year, I really don't think very much of DeSantis. I don't think he's going to go very far. I don't think he's going to win the White House. And I think the strategy, in my mind, in one word, is dumb. I can't figure out why somebody who needs to appeal to a broader audience to win his next office that he wants, the White House, would set on a strategy that is day by day narrowing the audience he's appealed to. Now that it may get him a nomination in a declining and more extremist Republican Party, but it sure is not going to increase his chances of winning a general election. And don't forget, Republicans have lost the popular vote for president in 7 of the last 8 elections. Their job is to expand their appeal, not decrease it. And you know what? So to do that, I guess DeSantis has decided that an anti-democratic, anti-free speech, sort of hate-filled message is the way to go. I think that vastly undersells the American people. You know, he may think he's a mini Trump, but interesting enough, he lacks the personal political skills that Trump had, at least in 2016, before Trump started really going off the deep end. So think about what he's done. He's doing this stuff now on the College Board in Black history, the advanced placement test. He went after Disney because he didn't like their position on his anti-gay rights bill, denying them funding for a spring training facility. He just also went after the Special Olympics I think this week. He threatened to fine them $27.5 million until they took off their COVID vaccine mandate. Last year, I believe it was, he suspended, or in 2021, he suspended I guess it was last year, he suspended a duly elected prosecutor in Hillsborough County because he didn't like his position on abortion. The prosecutor went to court and the judge ruled that DeSantis had violated his free speech rights, but that he couldn't reinstate the prosecutor because it was a federal court and it was a state matter. But you know, so he's positioned himself in this really weird way. If you're going to run for president, anti-Black, anti-gay, anti-business for a Republican, going after businesses, anti-vax, really anti-free speech, and I know he's anti-gun control, but he's really In this case, he was sort of pro mass shootings. How's that going to play in a general election in the suburbs? Somehow, and the other thing I just want to say, my last point is, some of the things have consequences. Some of it is for political play. Obviously, what he's done with the College Board is for political play. But his anti-vax policies have had real consequences. Florida has the 13th highest death rate among the states of COVID, higher than New York, that had all of those deaths before we even knew what COVID was. And now Florida has passed New York in a death rate. It's 50% higher than we have in the state of Maryland. So he may not have to pay for this stuff now in Florida, which is moving more and more to the right. But in a general election, I guarantee you the bill will come due.
Greg, what's your take on all this?
Well, first of all, my take is probably affected by my location. I'm coming to you from the Bitter End Yacht Club in Gorda Sound in the British Virgin Islands. And believe it or not, there's a link that occurred to me, which is this place was decimated in 2017. And yet now it is open. You have a British territory that with property owned by Americans, multinational, multiracial, who could not be more proud of what they built. So it's kind of encouraging to see a group of people come back and rebuild something. And for our friends who do like to cruise on the Eastern Shore and other places, this is a great place to come. I think I agree with much of what Al said. I think the only explanation that comes to mind, and it wasn't in some ways dissimilar to what Lee Atwater told us in the 1988 Bush campaign, but he laid it out in 86 and in 87, which was we needed to make sure that we got to and met with and convinced the religious right, who were supporting Republicans at the time, we needed to get them comfortable with George Bush, and we didn't want to have to do that in highly visible activities closer to the election, in late 87 and in the primaries of 1988. So if DeSantis and his people are engaged in a strategy which I'm not sure is quite as bad as Al suggested, but a strategy of trying to reach out to the segment of the Republican Party who has concerns about efforts to deal with racial and social injustices, and it is only a percentage of the Republican Party, but if he's reaching out to them through taking these various issues, and if the governor of Virginia is doing the same thing, they're doing it to protect their right flank. It sounds a little cynical. Frankly, it is a little cynical. Where I think that DeSantis at least is making a mistake is he is so visible, so public, so out there on that. He's going to have a very tough time, as Al was suggesting, walking back towards the middle. In the middle is where you're going to ultimately win an election, if in fact you're going to win the election. But he wants no one challenging him on the right. Trump's a whole other factor. Who knows what's going to happen to him? And that's why he's doing it. But it is cynical, and it also is not. It should not be used to suggest that the Republican Party is somehow insensitive to racial and social injustice. I just don't believe that we are as a group. But certainly there are some who are very concerned about their lot in life. They're very concerned about the spending that goes on to support, others, and he's trying to touch that every way he can. DeSantis is. I too think, like Al does, that this is going to have consequences for him, and it's not going to necessarily broaden the base, which is what he ultimately has to do.
Al, can I switch channels and talk a little bit about Speaker McCarthy's making good on his commitment to remove Adam Schiff from his House Intelligence seat? There are always going to be some consequences for this kind of stuff. What's your take?
Before I get into that, I just want to, since Craig mentioned Lee Atwater, there was another thing that Lee Atwater was very good at, and Mike Dukakis will attest to that. And that is taking things you said early in your campaign or in the primaries and wringing them around your neck and pulling the cord in the general. And what Craig said is absolutely right. I mean, you know, if he was doing this quietly, but these aren't, but the kind of things DeSantis is doing are not things you can do quietly. And that's, you know, that's part of the, there's one thing of trying to protect your flank. There's another of trying to, you know, do it in ways that are going to have longer term bad consequences for your own politics. What McCarthy is doing is, you know, he's trying to get revenge. Look, McCarthy, I never thought very much of him. And he has not displayed one iota of principle in his political life. And he is working very hard to underscore that now. I mean, he has basically given in to the worst, most extremist, most crazy elements of his caucus. His big ally seems to be Marjorie Taylor Greene, with a little help from Matt Gaetz and Jim Jordan, who are, you know, not exactly what I would call at the center of the political spectrum. Essentially what he's doing is he's getting back at Adam Schiff because he was the lead manager of the first Trump impeachment. And I'm sure, you know, Trump has been going after Schiff for now, what, 3 years? And I'm sure that's a big part of it. I don't think anything good comes from things like that. Incidentally, as we went on this morning, I saw a banner across my screen that Adam Schiff has announced that he's going to run for U.S. Senate in California. So McCarthy may have given a good issue. I mean, the idea that not only is it a bad precedent to take members of good standing, it's a difference when you have somebody who's done certifiably bad things like Marjorie Taylor Greene and Paul Gosar, when you take them off committees. But when you take members of good standing, you have to have a reason. He hasn't said anything except, you know, innuendo. We haven't seen one piece of evidence. And don't forget that the last Republican chairman of the Intelligence Committee, Devin Nunes, got in big trouble, and he's now working for Trump at Truth Social. Hardly, you know, a paragon of virtue. But in any event, McCarthy, as Craig has said all along, is probably not long for the speakership. You know, Adam Schiff, maybe Senator Schiff, will survive this effort by McCarthy to punish him. So will Eric Stolwell, for all I can see. And over the long haul, it's only going to do harm to McCarthy and the Republican Party.
Greg, you have the last word.
Well, basically, I think that Congress has to learn to work better together. And this is the big step backward. This tit for tat type of politics really serves no one. And Marjorie Taylor Greene is now talking about being Trump's running mate. Perhaps she shouldn't have been removed from the committee, but to somehow equate Schiff with her is ludicrous in terms of the experience, whether you may not agree with Schiff, but in terms of his knowledge and his experience. So I do think it's unwarranted, and I do think it makes it more difficult for these people to find a path forward on issues like the debt ceiling. They simply need to sit down and have some respect and trust from each other. And this was not a move that was in any way helpful, although I guess it's probably not a move that was unexpected either. My sense, and Al is much more history on the Hill than I, but my sense is when they take these cheap shots, they come back to bite somebody, and I'm sure this is going to come back one way or another. It does deny the committee somebody with a lot of experience. We need more of that, not less of that, and it does set us back in terms of working relationships. But it's the way of Washington these days, I guess.
Yeah, I'd just like to pick up on what Craig said. It is the law of unintended consequences that often happens. I mean, I spent a lot of time on Capitol Hill, and one of the most important things we ever did was the Congressional Budget Act. There were a lot of people, probably including my boss, Ed Muskie, who went into the Budget Act as with a particular political purpose in mind. But circumstances change. You get different people in charge. And within 3 or 4 years, that process was eviscerated because new circumstances had come into play. And you can't achieve long-term systemic reform when you try to do it for short-term political gain.
Well, we have to leave it there. Al Fromm, Craig Fuller, thanks so much indeed. We will see you next week. Hey, did Diane say she wasn't going to run? Fine sign?
I don't think she said anything because she probably can't.
Oh.
She doesn't know whether she's going to run because she doesn't know where she is. But so it's going to be Katie Porter, Schiff, and is Ro-Khanna going to get in? I hope Ro-Khanna gets in, so it'll be 2 liberals against a moderate.
Right. Wow.
But this has got to help Schiff because it'll help him with his weakest part of the party, which is the left.
Yeah.
All
right.
Okay,
well, have a good time. Bye.
Enjoy, Craig. Enjoy.
Okay, thanks so much.